What's up, everybody? BigSweetC here with you. Got a special little video for you. Today is December 12th. That happens to be the official game of the Game Awards, so I thought it'd be kind of fun, kind of like everybody does with the Hollywood Awards. Kind of go in and try and give my best guess as to what is going to win which category. And I kind of thought I had an idea of how I was going to do this, but truth is, going in here and looking. And 2020 wasn't a very good year. Sony cleaned house. The big winner of the day was definitely Sony Interactive Entertainment, as they had 50% of the apparently allegedly 6 best games of 2020. So they had Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and The Last of Us Part 2. Nintendo had one up there with Animal Crossing New Horizons. Doom Eternal was a Bethesda game. Good for Bethesda, they needed a win. And Hades was up there, which kind of came out of nowhere. I never heard of that one before they announced these winners. So major win for Sony, and kind of an embarrassing little year for Microsoft, in my opinion. They didn't look like they did so well. So we're just gonna kind of go through. I'm gonna have fun with this. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. There are a few categories that I'm just going to completely skip over because they seem kind of worthless to me. And I guess I'll explain a little bit as we go through. Now the thing I had, I guess the biggest qualm with is some of the technical terms that they have for the categories that we have. So starting right off the top, we're going to hit up with the Game of the Year. As I had stated before, 3 of these 6 were Sony Interactive Experience games, and so I have a pretty good feeling that one of those guys is going to win. I think it's actually going to come down to having previewed everything. I actually think it's going to come down to Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I know if you guys follow, I know Ghost of Tsushima actually just won the the Voters Award, I think is what they called it, and it beat out The Last of Us Part 2, which came in second. I guess Hades came in third. There was a big whole quibble about that, and well, I mean, I tried to find the tweet, but I couldn't. Apparently, Neil Druckmann took a lot of offense to it, and called out King Jeffrey, or whatever the dude who hosts the Game Awards, out about. Apparently, he thinks a lot of alt-right people came out in support of Ghost of Tsushima, and so it was like a false win, which I think is so 2020. We have one guy who thinks the election came out one way. We have one guy who doesn't like the outcome of the election, so he's trying to figure out a way to make it, to delegitimize it. So this whole hubbub with the voter award, I think, is prime 2020. And as a person who enjoys to watch the chaos, it makes me smile and it makes me laugh. But I'm not gonna focus on that. I'm gonna kind of go through what I think's gonna win, and kind of go over why some of it will be political, some of it won't be. But again, starting at Game of the Top. Now, in my personal opinion, if we're looking at recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields, in my opinion, I actually would have given it to Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I know some of that is probably nostalgia from the love of the first game and my love of the Final Fantasy franchise in general. But I'm going to use Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 to kind of explain why I think it should win out. Whereas you're looking at all creative and technical fields. So in terms of The Last of Us Part 2, I think it's going to win a lot of the classic writer awards, if you will. It's going to be valued more for its storyline, its progression through the story, and how it works through its novelization of the video game. Whereas I think a lot of Ghost of Tsushima is going to get kind of the pretty awards, we'll say, the artistic style, the combat, the maybe some like acting awards, if you will, the voiceover work and stuff like that. But I would argue Final Fantasy VII Remake maybe doesn't beat each one in each category. I think it does better in both categories than the previous two do in their other respectives. So, for instance, The Last of Us Part 2, you could arguably say that that has a more creative field than Final Fantasy VII. Whereas I still argue that it's that Final Fantasy VII has a very great take on its previous predecessor. So there's a lot more detail to the story, plays a lot more smoothly. They really updated the translation for sure and flushed a few more things out. But they added a lot of depth to it as well. Whereas The Last of Us Part 2 might be a different story. We're now looking at Ellie as the main character. But she also kind of splits time with Abby, who's essentially Ellie's character from the opposite perspective. I've been watching the TV show the Legend of Korra with my wife lately, and there's the story of Rava and Vatu. It's the light and the darkness, and they battle for eternity because you can't have one without the other, right? That's essentially the same idea as The Last of Us 2. You have Ellie, who begins as the light. You have Abby, who begins as Vatu. They fight back and forth, but throughout the story, as you play, you realize that they're both light and they're both dark, and they're both ending up being basically the same character told two times in the same game. Uh, and so I think there's enough there in Final Fantasy VII Remake to say that there's been enough changed, enough added, enough creativity there to hold its own against The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I have not played Ghost of Tsushima, so I don't know the full story of it. But it kind of, in my opinion, when I was watching gameplay of it, it looked more like an Assassin's Creed type game than, say, a From Software game. Even if it was a more From Software type game, From Software is not really known for its story. It's known for its lore, for sure, but that's because that's made up through the community, you know? So you have a way to relate it to everybody because everybody kind of makes up their own parts. And if they hear somebody say things that they agree with, it automatically makes it a good story for them, you know? So it allows you to put together the dots in like a connect, choose your own adventure type game, which gives it its authenticity as the story. But it's not really the story that progresses the story, right? um, However, I do see it as a very good combat game. A lot like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, in my opinion, where you got that third person omniscient narrative. Where it's not quite as kind of slow paced and patient as, say, like a Dark Souls or a Dark Souls 2, and it's not really as reliant on button timing as, say, a Sekiro or a Bloodborne. So I don't think it has kind of that same technical field as, say, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you kind of redefined the traditional turn-based RPG. There really is no turn-based anymore. I mean, the active battle commands have been so fine-tuned in Final Fantasy VII that you really don't notice that you're taking turns as you fight. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have that kind of wait period anymore. And in that in itself, in my opinion, is much better than the kind of the old Assassin's Creed thing that's been done for a couple of years now. More like an open adventure, almost like a Skyrim engine. You know, it's not as well perfected. Whereas you completely changed an entire genre with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, again, I am completely saying this as matter of opinion. This is what I think should win Game of the Year. This is not what I think is going to, because I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, and I might be completely wrong, but it seems like it's going to be one of the two. More like a Dark Souls From Software, or more like an Assassin's Creed from Ubisoft. And I think Final Fantasy VII Remake does a better job of changing it up technically than either of those two options as a Ghost of Tsushima game. So again, Remake I think kind of deserves it because it'd be like an A minus in both categories, where you would have like an A plus and a B plus in the respective Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2. And so I think the two A minuses probably outweigh an A plus and a B plus, in my opinion. Having said that, like I said before, I think it's going to come down to Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us Part 2. I'm going to venture to give it to The Last of Us Part 2, just a bit better odds than Ghost of Tsushima. So I'm going to go with our girl Ellie as the winner of the Game of the Year this year. And not that I'm going to be upset with it at all, but I just think it could have been a lot better than it really is. And so I think the politics behind it is kind of gonna what's gonna put it over the top. Whereas Ghost of Tsushima seems like just a game. The Last of Us Part 2 does really speak on another level, and kind of gives you that introspective thought about it. What also makes me think that it's going to kind of be the odds-on favorite is because of who's picking these awards. If you go and look at what the Game Awards are about, it all talks about the innovation and bringing the community to a better light and moving it into a better future. What does that stand for? That's woke politics. Like I hate to put it so bluntly, but it's what it is. And if you have a problem with that, you have a problem with that. That's where everything's going. The idea of business is to make money. The easiest way to make money is to make sure everybody likes your stuff. That's business. So if you're going to take this as a serious industry, you have to treat it as a serious industry, and that means a lot of the stuff that gets chosen to sell copies, sell product. I tend to think that the success of Final Fantasy VII Remake is actually a testament to how good the game actually is, considering it did a lot better than was naturally expected. But normally I would say the success of an exclusive game probably wouldn't give it the success warranted to make it best game. This year's a little different because half the options are from Sony and their PlayStation 4 exclusives. So in the success standpoint, I think Final Fantasy VII Remake also has legitimate clout to argue to be the best game of the year. Now, the other part of it, Last of Us Part 2, came out hot, did really, really well, and then immediately kind of fell off. I know they got a new campaign where they're advertising Abby now in the trailers to try and bump up sales for the holiday, but I don't know if I really see it. I think it was one of those kind of in the moment games, and you really needed to come out hot. I do not see this picking up steam as time progresses. Whereas Ghost of Tsushima kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, we had heard about it, but it's Sucker Punch. It's kind of a new engine, new genre for them, and so you didn't really know what to expect because they don't have like the longest history. So I think word of mouth kind of progressed it. I also think what helped it a lot is you can kind of say that you're playing a Dark Souls game without the difficulty of a Dark Souls game, so you kind of fit into that niche a little bit better. And so and now I'm not trying to call them bad players or nothing like that, but I just, it didn't look nearly as difficult as I thought Ghost of Tsushima was going to be. Like I was expecting kind of a Sekiro difficulty, maybe in between Sekiro and Bloodborne. But I was expecting it to be a difficult game, and what I saw from it didn't seem Didn't seem like an all that kind of patient game. It kind of seemed like if eventually if you leveled up, you would just kind of blow through it. Vice versa, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I kind of thought was going to be if you just leveled up enough, you could kind of just blow through it, but that's not the case. If you're playing it on hard and you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to beat Hell House. You're not going to beat Rufus. You're not going to beat Sephiroth. Like if you don't know how to play the game, you're not just going to be able to barrel your way through it and complete everything. And so if now if you want to go through it on easy, sure, maybe eventually you can just kind of, you get so many items that you can just continually keep your player alive long enough for the battle to just kind of end. But if you really want to play it on difficult, like it's supposed to be played on, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to get very far if you don't know what you're doing. So Ghost of Tsushima might be that way, but again, I'm trying to justify the fact that I think Final Fantasy VII Remake should be the game of the year. But it's not about what I think, it's about what I think what I think they think is going to be the winner. And I think it's going to be The Last of Us Part 2. I think it beats out Ghost of Tsushima just by a little bit. I think it beats it out, one, because it's about a marginalized community. Two, it kind of splits the difference between that and the voter awards. So now Ryan Goffley or Knight Goffley, whatever the dude's name is that hosts the Game Awards, he can now go, hey, yeah, so what? They won the voter award. At least we gave you the Game of the Year. So I think a little bit of politics has to do with it. But again, easily biggest winner of the day, Sony for sure. Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now I know Remake is only an exclusive for I think another year. Might not even be that long. It might have only been 1 year to begin with. So it might be coming up in March. Whereas I think Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 are only going to be Sony exclusives. So if one of those two does win, then Sony wins even bigger. But in my opinion, I think it should go to Final Fantasy VII Remake. The other one I would call out is actually Hades. This has actually kind of got me interested in this game. I like I said, I'd never heard of it before. And looking into it, it actually looks like it could be a pretty decent game. But I believe it's nominated for indie game. So I had, we'll have to maybe give that one a go at some point when we can pick it up on the cheap. As for Animal Crossing, the perfect Nintendo choice in my opinion. Amazingly successful, and Nintendo didn't have all that much come out this year, if I remember correctly. I believe there was a Super Paper Mario game, and then I think what was it? Gosh darn, I'm drawing a blank. RPG Maker 2 came out. Those were two big ones. But I think Animal Crossing, the success of Animal Crossing New Horizons, makes it a very logical and justifiable place for Nintendo. Now, having said that, Nintendo being on there and now Microsoft should feel slighted. They've got a lot to make up for, so they better hope that teaming up with Bethesda really helps out. But there you have it. My pick for Game of the Year, I think, is going to be The Last of Us Part 2. I think it should be Final Fantasy Remake. But as we go through the list here, you're going to see why it's going to be The Last of Us Part 2 or Ghost of Tsushima. So these Game Awards don't really mean anything. They're a lot like the Hollywood Awards. It's just a bunch of douches slapping each other on the back going, hey, way to make a video game, buddy. Yeah, keep at it, homie. Way to make a video game yourself. They're circle jerk sessions, and they shouldn't be taken too seriously. But that's gonna wrap it up. I know that was kind of a longer one. I actually might just cut this down for YouTube to the Game of the Year award, and I'll put the rest of it out as like a Patreon exclusive. So, because I was not expecting it to be this long. But that's what I think about the Game Awards. I do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell so you know when I do drop a new video or go live. Also, drop a comment below and let me know what you think about the Game Awards, because I've seen a lot of diverse opinions on Twitter, and it's been kind of fascinating. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your guess is for Game of the Year, and if you have any comments, if you happen to be watching this on Patreon, if you have any comments on the other ones, hit those as well. If you want to see the rest of it, be sure to, if you're not a Patreon member, it'll also be available to Twitch subs and YouTube members. So be sure to hit that up, and if you don't see it posted on the Discord, if you're not part of the Discord and you happen to be one of those members, do me a favor and definitely drop me a message so I know to add you to that list. Either way, again, thank you so much for making it here. If you have made it here, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell. Either way, that's going to do it for this one. BigSweetC, that's me, wishing YouTube, that's you, wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might be. Long as you're watching, I'm wishing you a wonderful watching time. Sweetness, signing off. Peace.